Dearest Podcast with Simone and Olivia Knego, making the world a better place one conversation at a time. Mom Simone and daughter Olivia share authentic discussions about everything under the sun, including those things you might be thinking about but feel uncomfortable talking about. Thanks for tuning in. Now here are your hosts, Simone and Olivia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Daughter Dearest Podcast. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
And today we are going to be talking about labels. And not the kind that go on wine bottles. Those are the kind that I like. But the labels.
Wow, I feel like you really had that joke set up, Mom. That was fantastic.
I just pulled it out.
That was great. That was really good. You should write that down.
Thank you. Okay. So, yes, labels that we put on ourselves and that we place on others. So let's jump in.
What is a label?
Yeah, okay, first of all, what is a label? A label is
literally anything. I mean, everything sitting on my desk right now is labeled. Even right before we started recording, we were talking about healthy and unhealthy foods, and the two examples of food I have on my desk right now are a jar of candy, which is labeled unhealthy.
Is that really
and
food?
A bowl of cereal, which is labeled healthy, although it's not very healthy, and one definitely tastes better than the other, and I can tell you it's not the cereal.
Well, it is kind of funny that cereal is something that is considered healthy.
Yeah, but it's like we label things, and I mean, the whole idea of labels is so archaic because we just put a label on it and just like that's what's supposed to define it as. Like, remember when we all labeled Nutella as this healthy breakfast food when in actuality it's literally just chocolate in a tub?
Yeah, pretty much.
If you apply that thinking to humans, it's like, wow, labels are really stupid.
Yeah, we label from the second we wake up to the minute we go to bed. I mean, everything we do is labeled.
You can't just exist.
Right. She's a bad driver.
She's a she.
She's a she. Okay. I don't know if that's a label. I guess it's a label.
I think that the problem with labels is that they're so helpful. And they are helpful because as human beings and just as creatures of this planet, we feel the need to categorize things. That's why we've categorized for everything, whether that's literally the periodic table or like the classification system of animals. But when you apply it to human, I think that's where the lines kind of start to get blurred because a human isn't just one thing. A woman is not just a woman, or like, and it comes down to like everything with the spectrum as well. Like someone on the sexuality spectrum might not just be homosexual, but because of the label that's easily assigned to them, they're just labeled as gay.
True. And then there's even more complicated labels where we get into, I don't want to say more complicated, but how we negatively label ourselves.
Yeah.
In terms of being overweight or, oh, I'm not so smart. Or I'm not capable of that. Like, we really put these things on us all day long. I'm not pretty enough.
I mean, it's so easy just to define yourself as your least favorite quality. And when you look in the mirror, instead of
easier to do that,
or even when you're introducing yourself, you don't list all these positive qualities about yourself. I'm hoping, and I'm sure that's something I would like to change with everybody listening, is that you don't introduce yourself with necessarily negative qualities. But I don't know, when you look in the mirror, maybe when you define yourself, you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I'm not that pretty. Rather than saying,
part of what we talked about last week is the really using positive affirmations to kind of change the way you see yourself and really change the way you think about yourself. And I think that it's so important that whoever you are, that you see the good stuff. And everybody has flaws. We wouldn't be human if we didn't. But to focus on the flaws, I used to have a really hard time accepting compliments because I didn't feel good about myself. So I would wonder.
I hate it when people don't accept compliments.
Well, right, but how can I accept a compliment when I feel like crap about myself? So
yeah,
people would say, "Oh, your hair looks great." I'm like, "Oh, it's so frizzy." Or, "You look great in that red shirt." It's not really the color for me.
Yeah.
And I literally had to learn to say thank you. in my 40s. Like I couldn't, it's ridiculous.
It's hard.
Right?
You're told things about yourself your entire life, whether that's by your brain or by your peers or by your family. And you tend to just simply define yourself as that, whether it's true or not.
It's the more someone says something to you, the more you believe it. And again, that goes back to the positive affirmations. If we can believe the negative because it's been said so many times, or we've said it to ourselves so many times, then we can totally believe the positive. We have to do it though.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think are your most common labels for yourself? Like they can be positive or negative. Like when you go and you were to define yourself to me right now, what would you do?
That's a hard one. So the me now is much different than the me 10 years ago. So
for sure.
I would say.
Can you believe the me 10 years ago was only 11?
Yeah, I can.
Just to like age you real quick, everyone in the audience.
Thank you for the math. Yes, I am going to be 52 next month. 52. It's crazy.
We should do an episode on age, but back to your labels, because I'm trying to think of mine in my head.
So let's do 5 positive labels.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that. So confident. Empathetic.
Do I have to say mine? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying mine and you're saying yours. I could easily give you 20. I'm going to give myself 5, right? I could give at least 20 about you, like, right?
Yeah,
like,
duh.
Snap them off.
But that's how it works.
Yeah, because it's much easier to compliment someone else.
I need to find a pen to write this down.
Okay, so where'd I go? Confident, empathetic, kind, patient, and street smart. Do you like that one?
I like that one. I guess I'm going to change mine to book smart then, because I don't think I'm very street smart. Okay. I think book smart. Well, I would just say smart in general. I don't lack tons of common sense. But even like saying that was negative. Yeah. Damn. Yeah. Okay, this is kind of hard because it's hard to be like, oh, I'm smart.
But you are smart.
Okay, fine. I think I'm very interesting.
I agree.
I think I'm funny.
I agree.
I think I'm kind.
Yes. You got one more? Yeah, it's hard. Okay.
I think I have a very pretty face.
You do have a very pretty face, but that means you're pretty. You know, your whole self is pretty.
But see, I don't think I can say that yet.
But you just kind of, that was like a backhanded compliment, because you said that
it's so hard to give yourself full on compliments. And for 2 reasons in my head. For one reason, it's the pretty, like acknowledging that me as a person and not just specific features of myself are pretty. Because by saying it's a specific feature, it's not necessarily mine, I guess. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it's like breaking it down. It's much easier to say like, oh, I love my eyes versus I think I'm pretty. Right? Yeah,
like I'm complimenting not the sum of my parts or whatever. I was just thinking of that one song. And then the other is like the kind of the ego aspect about it, where I don't want people to think I'm I'm full of myself, I guess, by defining myself as these things, which I think most of them I actually am. But I don't want people to like think, oh, she thinks too much about herself, or she's misrepresenting her good features, I guess.
So I'm going to disagree with you there, because I think that's a big problem, that we can't just say that we think that we're pretty. Like, oh, it's bragging, or like it makes other people uncomfortable. And I don't think that's the case. I think that each of us is beautiful in a different way. But when you look at research, and this is, to me, this was batshit crazy when I looked at Dove does some really interesting research on.
Actually, I do know. Well, we've talked about this in the past, but I was I'm working on a project right now for the whole Riot Girl movement from like the 90s, and they even quoted Dove research in there about like women, which I found crazy.
Yeah, they do some really solid research on self-esteem and
their products slay.
Teenage girls, and so the craziest statistic I saw is that, and it might have gone up just a little bit, but this was a few years ago, that only 4% of women worldwide consider themselves beautiful. 4%.
Which is crazy, because even thinking about the one class I went to yesterday, and I think 14 of the 16 kids identify as a woman, all of them are beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. But we were so hard on ourselves that we can't say it about ourselves. It's very easy to say about someone else, but not about yourself.
I think that statistic, to me, the first time that you said it to me, which I think was my sophomore year when you first started including it in your speeches, I remember sitting down with my friends, because although I struggle with the way I look and struggle with clothes fitting, etc., I've always found myself to be a beautiful person. And sitting down with my friends and genuinely asking them, like, do you find yourself beautiful? The answers were all no. Or I find certain parts of myself likable. Or some days I like myself more than others. But it's never consistent. So it really is just horrible, because, like, I can't say that. I've met some people that are ugly on the inside. But ugly on the outside, I think it's the eye of the beholder. And I just don't really...
What is beauty?
Exactly. I mean... someone recently told me that, like, I look like I'm out of like a historical painting, which was like a very, very sweet compliment. But yeah, like, that's what's beautiful, and that was what's beautiful to the people back then. But like, if you look at the body standards of back then, or even like the trends of makeup and the way you're wearing your hair is so different now, that beauty is entirely subjective.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like art. Right?
Yeah.
Say in the eye of the beholder, that when you're not going to love every painting you see, but every painting is beautiful in its own right.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. And every
painting,
person is.
Right. So, we have to stop being so hard on ourselves.
It's so horrible. It's so horrible. And God, I'm multiple years away from having kids, but I feel like in the last couple of like group conversations that my friends have had, we've brought up having children. And I don't know if you saw, but recently Sephora banned like all 13-year-olds or like under the age of 16 from going into their stores. And it wasn't for like beauty standards. It was because they were going in and messing up products. No. But I think that's a good thing. And as someone who was wearing makeup as a kid, like, whatever, it's probably hypocritical of me, but I see teens now or like 10-year-olds now that are putting themselves to such hard standards of beauty that they're not able to enjoy the joys of being a kid and just running around and getting dirty, and like, who cares if your hair is messy? You're 10.
Yeah, I know for some of your sister's friends, even in middle school, they were wearing a full face of makeup.
Yeah.
A full face of makeup. That's like crazy, right? I don't even wear a full face of makeup. It's way too much work.
So what my friends and I were talking about yesterday was, like, I was wearing a lot of makeup in high school. It started around, like, high school was when I was wearing a lot. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about finding inner beauty. It was that, like, the beauty TikTok, YouTube space was so big at the time that it was like, oh, I want to experiment with colors and do all of this. But I think now the way it's transformed is that you need this to be beautiful.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
15-year-olds do not need retinol cream.
Something just happened in Florida where they banned kids, I forget what age, from using social media. I'll have to look it up. But
wow, I'm surprised I agree with Florida politics on something.
But I don't know how you do that, because as it is, like, most things, they just make up a fake age to go on there anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't know how.
Yeah, it's crazy being 21 now, and like officially for every website I don't have to make up a fake age.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, but I think social media is so damaging for kids.
That's an
I just
episode
wish
in
we
itself.
changed the way we used it so it was more of just like a way to keep up with friends.
Yeah, and not, I don't even know how to say it. Just it just is one-upping every person,
Yeah.
right?
It just
And
I mean, it's the glorification of like celebrities and influencers, but like I like going on Instagram because like, you know, what did my friend from middle school eat for breakfast yesterday? I'm curious.
that's so funny.
But I feel like a lot of that's taken away, and I don't know, I'm not really loving the way society's going right now. I feel like it's very destructive.
Well, then let's talk about that side of it. So we talked about how we label ourselves, and what about how we label other people?
Oh,
So
and I am
when you see someone.
going on this preaching about labels, and I will say I'm the worst. I label everybody.
Yeah, so this is why this is important for us to really sit here and think about, okay, it's one thing what we say about ourselves, to other people about us, but it's another thing what we think as soon as we see someone, right?
Yeah.
It's another thing that, because a lot of labeling comes from a first impression, or not even, first sighting of somebody. And I think that that's a reminder that, okay, if we don't want to be labeled, we need to stop labeling other people. And it's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, you're driving down the street and it's like this person just crosses the road in front of you without hesitation, and you're like,
asshole, crazy,
right? Or like, don't you pay attention? Oh my gosh, this person's so stupid, or whatever you're thinking. And trust me, there are moments where, okay, that's fine, right? But in general, we give other people a complex,
for sure,
by not accepting them for who they are, or by judging before we know a situation.
Yeah,
Everyone has a story. If we took the time to hear their story about something, like you show up somewhere in your PJs and people are like, what is wrong with her? She's wearing her PJs out in public. Okay, well, maybe her dad just died, right? Maybe something really horrible happened, but instead we go to what we see and say horrible things about someone.
Yeah,
because we don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, I think we just choose to define people on the one moment they see that. I'm sure, like, going back to the PJ thing, I'm sure people see me all the time and say that I do not care about myself. I mean, I'm not, it's so cold outside. I'm not going to put a full outfit on. I'm not going to do a full face of makeup for 3 hours of class. It's just not me anymore. And I'm sure, like, some of the impressions that I give off and some of the things that people label me are, like, lazy and, like, does not care. But for me, like, caring is more about understanding the class material than what I'm wearing to class.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't worry about what people have to say about me anymore.
Yeah.
The things that I do for me.
Yeah.
For my family. And trust me, I'm never going to do anything like horrible or negative, or that's just not my personality. But I don't worry about if I'm going to an event and it's all these women are wearing super fancy stuff and I'm wearing my blazer and nice jeans. I'm not worried about that anymore. I used to say I'm not even going to go because I'm going to be uncomfortable in my skin because I don't fit in. And then I stopped thinking about it like that. If I want to do something, I do it. And that's the big thing, is that I think especially as women, we don't ask ourselves what we want. We just do what we think we have to. And then we put ourselves in situations where we're completely uncomfortable because we are doing things that we don't want to do.
Yeah. It goes back to everything about women and discourse on women that I've read in the past couple of months is, we just do things because we are told to rather than because we want to. And that's where these labels come up. And this brings me back to, I mentioned the book I was reading for this class, like Riot Girl, and this whole idea of this like counter punk culture to mainstream punk culture because it was so exclusive of women, like did not include them at all. And one of the big things in there that I took away was like, stop with the J word, stop with jealousy, like girl love. And Yeah, like that is something I have tried so hard since starting college, is to like don't judge anybody, specifically for women, because I feel like sometimes when I judge them, it is based off of pure jealousy, or they have things that I want.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's even this morning I caught myself. I was looking on social media, and I saw someone I know who was just on the news, and I'm like, oh, why am I not doing stuff like that? And then I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just call her and ask her how she got on there? You know, like stop.
Because people are willing to help.
And that's the thing. I think that we forget, and we put in this whole thing about we're jealous of this person. Well, don't be jealous of them. Ask them for help with something. I mean, we can't do everything by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
If you want,
we can't.
Those people want to help.
I will say, literally 95% of the people I've met, even whether that's speaking of like career wise, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and I was like, when you graduate, do you want like current students of our university to reach out to you for like jobs help? Would that be something you're into? Like, because I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then she brought a good point. She was like, well, yeah, duh. Like, people help me, so why wouldn't I give back and help them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like anytime, I feel like a lot of jealousy comes from people having things that we don't have, which duh. But then a lot of the times it's like, oh, like, yeah, totally, I'll help you out.
And it's not about the jealousy of actual wealth and items, obviously is a big issue, but we got to let that go, because
it's unfixable.
You are what you are, in like, you choose your destiny, you choose your path. Some people get luckier than others, but if you want something bad enough and you work really hard at it, then you can achieve it.
Yeah.
The people that you see, and obviously there are exceptions to it. There's plenty of people who have family wealth, but their family probably works really hard to get something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the jealousy over like material items just is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just is. And obviously I know there's lots of situations where it's very hard to get out of the poverty cycle. There's so many different things. So I don't want to belittle that. I do see that across the board, but I'm saying for when people are jealous of that person's car or that, okay, well, see it a little bit differently. But it's when people are jealous of what other people do. And I've even had people say, because your dad and I have been married almost 32 years now, that they kind of, I don't want to say make fun of it, but they're like, wow, that's a big achievement. And I get it. It is, because, 50% of marriages end in divorce, but it's kind of like, why are you...
Is that even real anymore?
Saying, is dad even real anymore?
Oh no, I'm pretty sure dad's real. Is that stat about divorce still accurate?
I think it's higher.
I think it's higher too.
Maybe closer to 60.
And that's another thing, is that a label put on women is spinsters.
Yes.
You are seen unattractive after a certain age. So we get into these marriages and these relationships that are not beneficial to literally anybody involved, and we just do it because we're told to.
Well, yes, I agree. And I just don't understand why it matters. Like, I had a conversation with a woman recently about how she's married, but she doesn't ever see herself having kids. And I said, great. And coming from someone that has 6 kids, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Like, you do you. Yeah. You do what works for you. And nobody should say, what's wrong with you? You don't have kids. Or what's wrong with you? You never got married.
And the other way around. Like, we know someone that is rather successful and is a single mother with 2 kids.
Yes. And again, that shouldn't be a label, right?
Yeah.
The single mother, you instantly have these ideas. It's not the word itself. It's the ideas that come to your mind with the word.
Because the definition of a single mother, like, she is just a mother without a partner.
Right.
She has kids and she is not in a relationship. But the labels and the associations that come off with that, like, are really damaging and negative. And it comes with such a negative connotation of suffering and struggle and sometimes worse than that in terms of like other ideas that aren't true at all.
I have multiple friends who have chosen to have kids without a partner, whether it was through adoption, through surrogacy, through sperm banks. What do you call? I don't know. That's what you call it, right?
Sperm banks is
a donor.
Yeah.
And but the assumption, people make these ridiculous assumptions that, oh, she couldn't find a man. No, she chose not to. It's not that she couldn't.
Yeah, kids don't need to, like, they don't need a mom and a dad. What they need is people that care about their lives.
Yeah, you need someone that really is invested in you, that really loves you. And I think that it's hard, I think it's different when you come from people. This is a label right here, a broken home, right? I mean, that's a big one where, if a parent left and that parent is no longer part of your life, that's a really hard thing on a child, right? But the idea that we have to make assumptions, or that we have to have these thoughts in our head, well, oh, she couldn't find a man, or, what's wrong with her? And it's crazy to me that we can't just accept people for who they are. And
because it's easy. It's just so much easier, and that's the problem.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to say negative stuff to other people, or not to them, trust me, not to them, but about them. And it's so much easier to say negative stuff about ourselves. Like, if we want that to be different, we have to change the way we do things. And I know we talked about this last time, that I talk about my real method, where you respect your reflection, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and love the woman in the mirror. And that's what I love to talk about. And one of the big pieces we're talking about today is asking yourself what you want, right? When you wake up every morning, do you want to be miserable? Do you want to be happy? You have a choice. You don't have a choice of certain things. Certain things are out of your control. But the things that you can control, right? How you react to something, how you interact with other people, how you choose to go through your day, you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And why not choose the path that makes you feel better in the long run, right? I don't feel good when I have negative thoughts about somebody. I mean, do you?
No, of course not.
Right,
I actually do not like hating people. It's so time consuming.
I don't think I've ever hated. Well,
I have.
Yeah, I have.
Not for like long periods of time.
Yeah, but in general, I can say I dislike what they're doing. But it's more than it's definitely not the hating the actual person. It's disliking their behavior.
Yeah, it is. It's just, you feel like so much of a better person when you're positive.
Yeah, and I'm not saying be positive all the time. I mean, my friends called me Positive Patty because...
Why? Who the hell calls you that?
Tina and Stacy.
That's so funny Patty. Because, like, to me, you're not necessarily the most positive human being in the world. You're real.
I'm real. Yeah, I'm real. But I do look for the positive, right? Like, I do try to, when someone tells me this horrible situation, I'm like, but what about this? Like, maybe this is the outcome, or this is why it happened, or so I do try to look for the positive. So yeah, I always cracked up. I was like, I'm not really Positive Patty, but in the moment I can be Positive Patty.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it's something that we really need to think about on a regular basis, that how are we putting ourselves out there, and what do we want, and why aren't we going after what we want? And yes, it's hard. It's hard to be kind to yourself. It takes more work, but is it worth it? Hell yeah.
100% worth it. The days like when you feel good about yourself, aren't those your best days?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you feel good about yourself, you're going to go out in the world in a completely different way. You're going to exude that positivity and inspire other people to think like, okay, maybe they'll think, oh my gosh, what is she so happy about? But to some people, it just someone smiling at you can change your entire day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I was at the vet with Sage, and the woman in front of me had this cutest little, I don't know, smush dog. The face was like smushed and it was all fluffy and it was so cute. Yeah. And she was just standing there and she looked annoyed, whatever. And so I was looking at the dog. I was like, it's so cute. So I smiled. I was like, oh my gosh, she is so cute. And like her whole face changed. It was like, oh, okay. Someone said something nice to me. Someone smiled at me. And I think that we don't give ourselves credit for those kinds of things. I think that we need to start.
Our positive interactions can make as much as a difference in someone's day as a negative interaction can. We need to stop thinking of positive as neutrality.
That is a great point. And you really just hit it on the head, because when someone says something negative to us, it sticks with us.
Yup.
Right? It's just really hard to move past it. I remember I was at an event one time and I had someone say to me that nobody likes me. It was like I was in this leadership role and he's like, nobody likes me. And so I'm sitting at the table and I ask all the people around and I was like, is that true? Does nobody like you? And they're like, no, he's just upset because you didn't let him do this certain thing. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I was like, I've never had anybody tell me that they don't like me. I was like devastated. And this is like years ago and it's still sticks in my head, right? But yeah, positivity, like when someone says something positive, like it can totally change someone's day too. Like you're an amazing leader. Wow, thank you. And then you say thank you because, again, hard at first, but you keep practicing it and you'll be able to do it.
For sure.
So we're changing our format for those of you. We're recording on Riverside now. We are trying some new things. So our episodes that we're doing by ourselves without guests are going to stick around 30 to 35 minutes. And then when we have guests, it might be the same, but we're going to probably extend it a little bit to 45 minutes, how the conversations are going. And if you like what you hear, please share, download, like our podcast, leave a review, leave a comment. We would really appreciate it. And make sure you check out our show notes for this episode and download your free copy of my favorite positive affirmations.
And Mom, my calendar's back.
Oh, yes, we bought the calendar. So I got our calendar last year. It's called Unfuck Yourself. And I don't think we have to bleep that out, but
oh yeah, okay.
Because it's the name of a calendar.
Yeah.
And so it gives really, really real advice. Okay. If we're all about being real, it gives real advice. So, and we like to end each episode with a piece of advice from her fabulous calendar. So please go.
Okay. Your truth and the truth are not the same.
Oh, that's actually perfect for today.
Yeah, I know.
Right? The lies that we tell ourselves about that we're not pretty enough or that we're not good enough.
It's not real.
It's so true. And the truth is that we are. We are all worthy. We are all capable. We are all beautiful. We just are.
Yeah.
We're women. We change the world.
We're awesome.
So thanks for I can't even talk now. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Daughter Dearest Podcast. We will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Daughter Dearest Podcast with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Daughter Dearest Podcast, at Simone Knego, and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.